Yeah, and we actually do have, the IFCN does have a complaints process. I mean, people can and do file complaints with the IFCN about other fact-checking organizations, and we do our due diligence in looking. And if those complaints are considered founded, I mean, that's something that when you are going to get certified, like if you have multiple complaints that you have bad fact checks, you're not going to get recertified, probably. But we advocate for our organizations as well. We're setting up new working groups to continue to advocate for our organizations, particularly in areas where the political environment is more trying.
What's the case if fact check is fine, but you find that fact checker is working on social media against some groups or something? You get those complaints. Is there a scenario there, like, are you ready to go and talk to that fact checker? Or
What do you mean?
if he is going on his social media?
Oh, his personal social media?
And his fact checks are fine.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, is there a way to deal with it, or you just?
I think in general, we don't have a formal policy, and that's actually a very good point. I think our general process would be to talk to the organization, just because, there are some journalism ethical issues like that. Politifact doesn't. Politifact has their own internal editorial process that is on your social media. Like, you cannot post political stuff. That is the rule, and so I think that's something that we would encourage our signatories to develop and work with. It's interesting because that's a really big debate right now in the United States. There have been writers and reporters from pretty prominent media outlets, for example, the Washington Post or the Pittsburgh Gazette, who have been feuding with their employers because they have posted political stuff. There was a reporter in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a city in the north-ish, Midwest-ish of the United States. And she posted a comment about it. It's a Black reporter, and she posted a comment about Black Lives Matter. And she ended up getting terminated from her job. And she's in court. She sued her former newspaper. And so it's tough. It's something that a lot of media outlets are dealing with now, because 20 years ago, this wasn't a thing we had to deal with. There wasn't social media. Sure, maybe you talked politics at a party with your friends, but it wasn't broadcast for everyone to see. And so I think in general, we would encourage outlets to develop their own editorial policy for it. In general, we encourage, nonpartisanship. I don't post political stuff on my social media, even though I'm not actually a fact checker. I work for a fact checking organization. I just think it's easier that way to not create conflict. But ultimately, we can't tell. It's not a policy for the IFCN to not always post on social media. So we can't tell organizations that you can't let your reporters post political stuff, but we would probably encourage them to establish some editorial guidelines.
Organization is not having partisanship for a particular party or something. So how do you deal with when you get a complaint?
I mean, if an organization is found to be partisan, then they run the risk of losing their certification when the next assessment period. It depends on how egregious it is, I think, and how many complaints there are. If there's one complaint, we're not going to immediately terminate. If there's multiple complaints and we try and address it, then yeah, they'll lose their signatory status. The whole process takes a long time, though, and fortunately, I mean, that's partly why we do the certification every year, which is a lot. It's a lot of work for us. It's a lot of work for that organization, but it ensures these policies are adhered to.
So if it is not just news, and if you find a chance upon a website that's checking misinformation, we can, as fact checkers, do we also deal with that, or it's just when it's viral or it's just on social media?
Can you repeat your question or clarify your question?
Why we are investigating it? Three chance upon his website pending. So that's where that is from. That says that this posts happen. So when we chance upon these websites, which is a whole lot of information, it may not be a post or anything in that sense. Do we also write about it?
Yeah.
website articles just
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's,
News report in a website.
it depends. I mean, there are some fact-checking organizations that only adjudicate specific claims, and then there's other fact-checking websites that literally will do stories on, and one is right or wrong. That's different. There's some fact-checking editorial decision. Organizations that do long-form stories that aren't, on a specific claim. There's some that also do investigative pieces, because a lot of kind of fact-checking investigative journalism, there's some overlap there. So there's not necessarily a right or a wrong way to approach it, and all of our signatories are different. I mean, some of our signatories are like really prominent media outlets that just have a fact-checking department, like BBC, right? Like that is a major news outlet. They just have a fact-checking wing, or USA Today, which is the largest distributed newspaper in the United States. Then there are standalone stories as well. Yes. Yeah. So it's just an editorial decision. Politifact doesn't. Politifact only adjudicates claims, but there's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's just how you think your organization would best work. Unfortunately, you guys are all coming from television outlets, so you can do an in-depth piece if you find a website that's really peddling this disinformation, because you're not just a fact-checking organization. So you have the ability to do a really good investigative piece. And some of those fake news websites, you can really get into the weeds, because some of them are, for example, like troll farms. They're located overseas, and that's all they do is write and try and circulate mis and disinformation. And those are great in-depth feature stories. They're really fascinating, and people are really excited. So it's all up to you. That's the beauty of journalism. We can be creative. Mostly already talked about this reporting process. And again, the process varies between organizations. This is far from our peers at Politifact. When you find a claim, stuff you want to do is a review of what other fact checkers have found, similar topics, things they've researched on that specific person. Do a thorough Google search. You guys know all the fun things you can do on Google. Search online databases, consult a variety of experts. Again, as we talked about yesterday, think academics, public officials, if they are the right people in that context. Lastly, review publications and do a final overall review of overall evidence. Remember to verify, verify, verify. Use primary sources and original documentation. Don't cite another newspaper. You want to make sure you see that primary source on yourself, on your own. Think government reports, data, academic studies, etc. Try and use multiple sources to verify your fact check if at all possible. Just like when you were writing papers when you were in school, the more sources, the more credibility. And as I said yesterday, if you cite a news source with an unnamed or unattributed source, be transparent and say that it can't be independently verified. One of the nice things about the IFCN is that we have a Slack channel. Are you guys familiar with Slack? Is that a thing that is used in this part of the world?
Not that famous, but we do use some.
So Slack is essentially like a messaging and chat software. You can share files, text each other. You can even do like video calls if you want. The International Fact Checking Network has both a listserv and a Slack channel. And one thing that's really cool, especially for outlets that cover international stories, if they're researching a claim and they're struggling to find information in their own language, for example, a lot of times they'll reach out to the IFCN on Slack or via listserv, source fact-checking information. We also have databases that we share with each other, which is really great. Two of the shared databases that have been going on in the last 2 or 3 years. In 2020 and 2021, the IFCN launched the Corona Facts Alliance, where they shared common mis and disinformation about COVID. And that was great because when some of these rumors and fake news popped up about the coronavirus, we had a database that you could look at. Whenever someone did a fact check related to it, they popped it in the database. That way, everybody across the IFCN could share with it. And then this past year, after Russia invaded the Ukraine, IFCN signatories Maldita, which is based in Spain, also created a database called the Ukraine Facts Alliance, and it's all mis and disinformation related to the Russian invasion. Come across some of these claims, you can consult the database and you have resources right at your fingertips. So that's kind of another one of the benefits of the IFCN is you get to work with really smart people that have already done a lot of the work and you guys can help each other out. It's great. Just to get a little bit into the actual story that you either write or record, remember you want to be clear, concise, and transparent. Your story should be understandable to the average person. And that's just basic journalism, right? Even if you're doing an investigative piece or a hard news piece, the average person should be able to understand what you're writing. Unless you're writing for a niche publication like an engineering magazine, then you can get a little bit more in the weeds. But if you're writing for a general audience, make sure your audience understands what you're talking about, even if it's political. There's not a set rule on how long it needs to be, but again, I do want to reinforce a fact check isn't just a tweet or a sentence or a social media post. It has to contain analysis. It doesn't help anybody if you just say a claim is fake and don't give a reason why But again, this translates to your said yesterday. There's not one medium that works as well for fact check. If you're going to do a video fact check, you can do a digital story, you can do a digital video, you can do a print story, and you can do traditional TV. Context for the statement being checked. Why they made this statement. In this example, we use some examples from the United States political structure. This video is from Priyanka Gandhi raising slogans against the central government. Tell me what is being shared with a false audio, and that way you're not amplifying this and disinformation. It gives you the context. There's protests going on against Priyanka Gandhi on social media. She's being seen singing a song while being around. Two. Ingredient two, a complete account of the statement, your paragraph's ruling statement, but provide of what the claim is, even if it's a video excerpt that's, several minutes long, make sure you provide that. For a news story, you might want to edit it a little bit to complete account of the statement. So here we have the claim, but they have the video in its entirety shared via Facebook. And then they have the fact about it, which is the original video uploaded on Twitter by this account. Ingredient from the video is replaced. It's essentially all a transitional statement. It's when you transition to what the claim was, to what your analysis is, and where you explain your methodology for how you fact check it. So in our searched, you used related keywords, found articles related to the incident, talk several Congress leaders, how they were there, that they were detained, they led protests, price rise, and the claim through your independent sources. So here, facts and Fact talks about how they searched for the relevant keywords. They found the actual video from the official account of Indian Youth Congress. It gives the translation. Well, it gives the real description, and then also gives a translation since the fact check is in English. Gives you a link to the original tweet. Then it talks about the audio that you hear. It talks about how the video that's circulating is the same video from a different angle and different audio. Final ingredient is the ruling. Sometimes it's a paragraph or two about why you explain why you came to your conclusion. So here they have a very quick 2-sentence conclusion, perfect, really digestible. Upon further research, we found the song in the viral video was extracted from this video, which they linked to, was uploaded 3 years ago. To sum it up, the visuals that are being shared with false audio. Done. Succinct, but thorough. All right. Now we're going to get to the stuff that people are more interested in, which is audience engagement. It's readers and viewers interested and involved in the work of an organization, fosters communication, and also fosters community, which I don't have in here, but is very important. You want to have a good rapport with your audience because your audience sometimes will submit fact checks to you. You want to seem accessible so that the audience will submit your fact checks to you. There's also some money involved as well. People who are engaged are more likely to be model subscribers, if you have a subscription-based model, which is very important for organizations that, for example, have a paywall on their website. I think some people do. Nebulous terms between organizations and readers to communicate and seek feedback. It doesn't exclusively, audience engagement doesn't have to only be online, but that tends to be, it can also be in person, it can be via television, and it can be via print. How many people here know what a KPI is? So on the internet, KPI means key performance indicator, and they're pretty, an acronym is probably not the way to go, but they're very nitty-gritty details, and they can include, particularly on the internet, impressions, page views, bounce rates, amplification rates, conversion rates, click-through rates, bounce, and more. Those all mean very different things. I'm not going to get too into the weeds about every individual KPI, but something your social media presence, especially if you have the ability to hire someone to only do social media. Social media right now or be someone full-time but job. All the jokes about the intern running your Twitter intern, because social media is so vital now, because that you're not, this consumer is more likely to return to that source and spend more time. The audience is more likely to spend time on your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram at that source once they're there. And engage, they're more likely to contribute story ideas. And more importantly, they're more likely to contribute or convert to a paid subscriber, donate money, etc. Audiences are already suspicious of journalists as a whole, and fact-checking is a new type of journalism. This is why being transparent in our process is important, and you can use audience engagement strategies to be transparent. It should appeal to a variety of audiences. Methodologies. Fact-checking can and consistency communicated via your social media platforms and on delivering your fact checks. It's sort of a comfort to readers. It makes them more comfortable in your process. It makes them more willing to trust you. And again, it helps make them more media literate, which is what we want. Make sure that process is available. That's why IFC signatories are required to post their methodology. That level of transparency is and comforting to your audience and keeps them engaged. Things to remember about social media. You can definitely cross-pollinate. Some things that you put on one platform just as well as an Instagram reel on the other company, after all. Facebook reel, but stuff on Twitter isn't always necessarily going to perform the same way it performs like on Facebook, and certainly not on Instagram, since one is a text-based platform and the other is an image-based platform. Remember, certain content will perform. Facebook tends to be more detailed, slightly longer platforms. People are more engaged on that platform. TikTok and Instagram tend to cater to more younger audiences. So you want them to be a little bit quicker, a little bit snappier, and a little bit fun on your social media stuff. You can be a little bit clever. You can be a little bit funny in a way that you might not necessarily on your website or in your video journalism. You can have the way is great, gets eyeballs on the page. Video can be featured on social media platforms. I'm going to get a little bit more. Facebook videos should be timely, well produced. Same with YouTube. You're going to have a higher production value on some of those, whereas Instagram, those videos are a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun, short. Remember that young people. And one of the benefits of you guys, Instagram 10 is you all come from technologically savvy users, a television production background, video. You guys already do. So you already have a head. A lot of print journalists don't know how to make a leg up on some other fact checkers based on your video experience. Has more Facebook users, 400 million, 38 million users on Twitter, 230 million users on Instagram, and 467 million users on YouTube. It allows for interaction between the reporter and consumer. There's comments on your videos, and content on social media is very easily disseminated to consumers. Unlike a TV story or a news article where you have to actually email someone that link, when you're on social media, there's literally a button. You just press share. It makes it super easy. It's also why we have to have fact checking. It's super easy to spread fake information, but it means it's just as easy to spread your fact checks. Oh, that is a repeat slide. How many people here have heard of the audience funnel? Audience funnel, yeah. Funnel. It's this little triangle you see here. The audience funnel, it is essentially a way to capture people. So the first level of the funnel is a first-time visitor who will be on your social media page. That's just reach. When people talk about, they mean your first-time visitor, first time putting eyeballs on your page, maybe the second time, they're not super familiar. You want to move people down that level of the funnel. Once they put their eyes on your page, you want to engage them, because when you engage them, then they become a return visitor. So the level of funnel here is you have return visitor, which return and engage, that is an engaged, it's the engagement level of the audience funnel. Once they move from a return video and an engaged visitor to a subscriber, that's what we call the conversion level. You're converting them to a reader, from a reader to a subscriber. And again, this has to do a lot with paywalls, which we do encourage some not every organization has to have a paywall. It really, you're set up as a nonprofit, what your funding structure is, and on what you, and it doesn't have to be your subscription, right? What your structure is, what you're trying to do is convert the loyalty. That's someone who follows you on social media, retention, your content with other people, who comments. If you host events, they go to the events. We'll get to the events later in building community. So there's a lot of, the audience funnel is a concept of products that was borrowed from marketing organizations, and it's something that journalists can figure out how to actually maintain the sustainability of media. Some strategies that work to lead this is threads. I'm sure you all have seen Twitter threads where people will get on your Twitter account and read different threads. Follow-up comments. If someone comments on your Facebook page, do you ignore it or do you respond to it? If you respond to it, you show that you care what the audience is saying. You show that you're engaged with what the readers think. Video explainers are pretty great, especially in explaining the way fact-checking works. So I'm going to give you an example of a video explainer from our colleagues here at Global Fact.
But the world isn't politics, and the claims we fact just to be told whether something's true or not. But the world isn't black and white. Policy, politics, and the claims we fact check.
Oh, that's weird. It's on my screen. How do I? Oh, here. There we go.
Useful just to be told whether something's true or not. But the world isn't black and white. Policy, politics, and the claims we fact check usually aren't black and white either. Hi, I'm Josie, Politifact's audience engagement editor. And a frequently asked question we get is, how do you decide the ratings? At Politifact, we hold these truths to be self-evident. Word, context also matters. Once we've found a claim to fact check and a reporter has gone through the rigorous process of finding facts, contacting the speaker and experts, we then turn to our truthometer. I'll quickly run through the Politifact rating system. First up, we have our true rating. True is a correct statement. Pretty straightforward. Our second rating is mostly true. It's when a statement is accurate, but it needs some...
I don't think you need to watch the
Fact check the
If you go to Politifact YouTube page, they have these video explainers that, again, you can explain your methodology and increase your transparency. This is great stuff that if you have a Facebook page, or a Twitter page, you can pin that to the top of your social media profile. Right off the bat, your audience can have the explainer. So you hit a couple different things. You're explaining it to your audience, and you're fulfilling your requirements of being transparent about your methodology as a fact checker. These are very highly produced videos because they last for a long time. The methodology hasn't changed. We'll hit a couple of other Politifact videos, but this is their channel. As you can see, video strategy is very important for Politifact. Truthometer Minute is one of their really great endeavors that they've embarked on, which is short videos, about 1.5 to 2 minutes long, explaining their fact checks. And again, you guys with television backgrounds, with production backgrounds, you guys are perfect for making these short videos about your fact checks, which perform really well online. Again, it helps foster trust with your audience and siphon audiences through the funnel, and it can help serve as an explainers. Remember that each platform, you definitely want to have different strategies. Facebook and Twitter, a lot of that focuses on linking. So you can utilize those platforms to link to your overall fact check from your website. Instagram, you're not going to link as much, although Instagram has changed to now that you can swipe up on stuff and link directly to the page. But in general, on Instagram, people are going to stay in that platform. So what performs really well on Instagram is debunking visuals, fake photos. Those perform really well. And again, those short 1-minute videos. But Facebook and Twitter, people will leave that platform, whereas Instagram, people tend to stay on that platform. So think about debunking memes, visual misinformation. As I said, Facebook Reels and Instagram Reels also perform sort of similarly. You want that short 90-second video. It can be looped, and the better your Reels do, the more often they'll be featured by the platform. That's part of the algorithm. So now I'm going to let Josie explain something to you. So Josie's going to talk a little bit about social media.
Social media means a lot of different things to fact checkers. For one, it's where we're debunking misinformation and uncovering disinformers who are wanting to manipulate the story to benefit them.
It's up pretty high on here.
The story to benefit them monetarily or ideologically. Social media can be a scary place where the person with the boldest and sometimes wrongest message gets the stage. And fact checkers are looking to change that narrative We're looking to flip the script and promote the truth both in our fact checks and also what we publish on social media. First, I'll talk about Politifact's goals on all our social media accounts. We're presenting Politifact as taking on all sides. We're fact-checking anyone and everyone in pursuit of the truth. We're driving down the partisan barriers to our work through tone and language. We're telling our story. The other thing is we're emphasizing informative, in-depth, and process nature of our work on social media, threads and follow-up comments, as well as video explainers that talk about our work, we do it, and we provide the most context as possible. So we're also listening to our readers and we're answering their questions. We're following up with suggested fact checks in order to move the conversation deeper, readers down the funnel. More on that later. We're also going to be amplifying our partners' work to promote media literacy through Pointer, IFCN members, and state and health partners. So here's what checking on social media. What to say in your pitch. Come up with your own way to frame a story or fact check. Ask yourself, why would your sort of political uncle click on this story? How will this be informative? Piece of misinformation. We don't actually want to promote the misinformation. We want to try and create what we call here at the IFCN a truth sandwich. So here's the truth, here's what misinformers are saying, and here's more of the truth and maybe what an expert says. At Politifact, we post different kinds of content on Facebook and Twitter, and we do that differently than Instagram and TikTok. Facebook and Twitter are primarily link posts directed to our fact checks or stories. On Instagram and TikTok, we focus on covering live events and getting reader responses, as well as debunking visual misinformation. We focus the most of our visual content on Instagram. On there, we've seen a huge follower growth and engagement in our debunking of memes and visual misinformation. I'll post these kinds of same graphics on Facebook and Twitter. They work fine there, but they do not get the same reach as when I post them on Instagram. The types of Politifact posts that perform the best on the various platforms are, well, on Facebook, videos that are well produced and timely, such as this one from the RNC.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Funke with Politifact. During Trump's RNC speech, he pointed to a strong economy, secure borders, and his coronavirus response as reasons that Americans should re-elect him in November. However, on several occasions, Trump veered from the facts. Politifact counted 20 claims that needed more context, were misleading, or were outright false.
We have already built 300 miles of border wall.
This is wrong. During Trump's 3.5 years in office, the area of the border that has been covered by a new wall has increased by just 5 miles. Trump's boast is in reference to the replacement of older fencing with new barriers.
On Twitter, we'll do live sort of events, which is debates or rallies or other political events. And when we've produced a fact check that is false or pants on fire, that will perform really well on Twitter. On Instagram, a visual meme that originated on Instagram or was very widely spread there that we debunk using our template with rating and a short explanation of why it's bogus. So here's like a nice pop culture example, debunking football star Tom Brady's Instagram story is accidentally a suicide. I would recommend investing time on social graphics, if only for Instagram. You can see in these graphs, when we started publishing more text and fact check graphics, the blue and the orange colors on the graph, on Instagram we saw in early August, huge follower growth. We went from 13,000 Instagram followers to 20,000 followers December 1st. One thing that seems obvious, but I'll mention it specifically, if you have fact-checking or media literacy partners, make sure you're amplifying their work where it's relevant. It might just mean a retweet here or there, an organic share, or perhaps you do an online or in-person events with them. We did this interactive Twitter thread on Inauguration Day with our partners, the International Fact-Checking Network, Pointer, and MediaWise. We ended up having a timely social media content that engages readers and showcases all of the work that Pointer and our resources have. So look for opportunities to reply to your fact-checking organization's own post with either a link to your reporting process, similar on-topic fact checks, or a link to other fact checks of this speaker. Provide additional information in the post beyond the specific fact check or claim you're checking. This gives so much context to your fact checking and it helps differentiate your work from hard news to the audience. It shows that you've fact-checked other similar claims, or you've made a commitment to fact-checking a certain topic area, such as public health.
And I do want to clarify, when Josie talks about live events on Twitter, she doesn't mean you actually recording it, but someone asked yesterday about fact-checking stuff in real time. And when they were fact-checking, for example, the United States State of the Union address or the presidential debates, Twitter was the means that they used to provide those live fact checks. The threads work really, really great when you're doing fact checks in real time. Although again, fact checks in real time, super hard, very challenging. I saw people taking notes, but here are her broad takeaways: framing your pitch, why it's informative, different formats for different strategies for different platforms, support and amplify your partners. The benefit of supporting and amplifying your partners is if you do it, they'll do it for you too. Providing additional information in the post, and it helps contextualize. I also want to note that these are strategies that Politifact has used. Analyze your own performance. Learn some analytics. Both Facebook and Google allow you to take free online analytics courses, so you can learn how to analyze different key performance indicators online and find what works best for you, because something might work differently for Facebook in India than it does in the United States. So if you familiarize yourself with some key performance indicators, and again, there's resources online. Google, it's called Google Analytics Academy. They're both free, and you can learn more about KPIs so that you can analyze KPIs yourself. An easy one that you can look at is look at your follower growth. And again, look at time spent on your websites. Those are two really basic, fundamental key performance indicators that can help inform your strategy. We're gonna have Josie do one more video for you guys, and this one is a video about video.
Politifact took the big video plunge in 2020 with the help of a grant from the IFCN. From April 2020 to December, we published 54 videos and had over 760,000 views in that time on YouTube alone. With advice from an expert, we focused our efforts on fact-checking videos called the Truthometer Minute. Here's a look at what we were able to film and produce working from home.
When asked if he supports cutting police funding, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely.
I'm John Greenberg with Politifact. Let's fact check this talking point in today's Truthometer Minute.
Wildfires raging in California, Oregon, and Washington have already burned hundreds of thousands of acres, and the trail of smoke stretches to Michigan. The fires have also stoked a fair amount of misinformation on the internet.
This post says, remember a few days ago when everyone's phone was acting crazy? Well, they put a COVID tracker on every phone. Go look, it's there on your phone right now. There are other examples of this post out there that go even further, alleging an undercover government surveillance plot.
Let's say you're hospitalized with COVID-19. Since you have the virus, put it on your medical record. Since COVID-19 attacks the lungs, you go into respiratory failure. Eventually, you get cardiac arrest and unfortunately die. That condition would also be listed on your death certificate. But since COVID-19 started that chain reaction, the doctor would consider that to be your underlying cause of death.
Creating video takes time. There's no doubt about it, but it plays well on nearly all social media platforms, and it humanizes your work and explains your work as fact checkers. You can walk viewers through researching process, providing some media literacy for your audience. Hoyer's Playbook is really helpful in delineating the advantages, goals, and challenges of videos. Politifact has all with the strong host-led narrators that walk viewers through, explaining whether information is true or not, but also teaching media literacy tools.
The team focused on using a host as the connective tissue that would provide context to these interviews. Alexis was chosen as the host, and she was new to being on camera.
The initial thoughts going through my head were like, oh, I'm like not going to be a natural at this.
Over time, Alexis got more comfortable and confident being a host. One key step was doing a pre-read before it was time to shoot.
I would read the script out loud, and as I went, he and I would like just things like, oh, you should not say that like that. That sounds so weird now that you're saying it out loud.
Better police community trust Does that make sense to say? It makes sense to read with the dash in the middle, but does that make sense to say, you think?
Actually, that I think helped increase my confidence a lot once we were filming, because I felt like so much more familiar with the script, and like, you know, I worked through it myself already, changed the wording to be the way that I would say it.
An IFCN member that does a great job with a consistent host and upbeat tone is Maldita.es. They have an excellent series with breezy graphics and an authoritative but personable host on the definitive evidence of climate change. It's one of the things that Maldita does best, science fact-checking for the average person, and they showcase that in their video work. If you can get access to a video producer, your team might surprise you with how they can dream up, script, and record interesting video. Many IFCN members have been experimenting and perfecting their video strategy for years. So plan your line of attack on video, then take at least 6 months to try producing videos consistently. As a result of posting these videos to IGTV, we appeared in more searches, more on the Explore page, and our shares went up across the board on Instagram. We went from posting no IGTVs to once or twice weekly, which contributed to tripled followers, and we got 25 times more video views this year than the same time last year. We had almost 200,000 IG video views overall. On Facebook, as a result of our concerted video efforts, we tripled our video viewership. The watch page on Facebook was serving our election debunking outside of our usual audience. Our video editor was able to cut minute-long vertical versions of our videos for TikTok, which performed some of the best for us on that platform. Another thing to keep in mind when creating videos is it isn't just to disseminate on social media platforms with traditional feeds like Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. They expand your fact-checking reach on YouTube, a search and SEO-based social media platform. By publishing videos consistently, we were able to gain 5,400 new YouTube subscribers and $3,000 revenue from advertising. If you're wondering about video for your organization and you're willing to budget the money and time for scripting, filming, producing, and publicizing, I would say go for it. No one is going to say it's easy, but a video component to fact-checking, again, humanizes your work and brand in a way that no newsletter or social media post can.
And again, not to overemphasize it, you guys already have the hard part done. Part of the hard part for these organizations is finding someone that knows how to edit video. You guys work at TV. You all know how to edit video. So I just want to elevate some points that Josie made from their platforms to help walk viewers through the process. It helps foster media literacy. You want to have a distinct host with an identity, the same way that you want someone with identity on a social media platform, you want your video person to have an identity too. Politifact, you don't even have to have the same person hosting. If you look at the Politifact 1-minute fact checks, they have different people that host, but they all have a distinct tenor. They have a distinct identity, a distinct voice. Consistent video also helps improve your standing. They talk about attracting viewers, and yes, performing consistently on video will get people to regularly return to your page, but I also want to emphasize something that she sort of slipped in there. When you regularly post video, the algorithm, you regularly post video and people regularly watch your videos, it helps elevate on the algorithm. You'll auto-populate on some of those reels quicker than if you only post video sporadically. She also talked about something called the Vidspark Playbook that was developed by our former colleague, Asante Bean. She was at Poynter for a year for a fellowship where she developed this video tutorial. Vidspark primarily to Gen Zers and how to attract them on video. And Asante now received a grant from YouTube, so she's been working with YouTube for about a year now, producing content for them, a lot of explainer videos. So here is, and we can share this link to the group chat as well, to the group link. But this is the Vidspark Playbook. It's in English, but it's totally free online on pointer.org. And again, she talks about video strategy for crafting content strategy for social media platforms and working with Gen Zers. And she uses different case studies. They're American case studies, but again, something that you can reference. So I'll share this with someone who has the WhatsApp access, and we'll share that link with you guys so that you can access it. Just a couple other things to talk about real quick. How many of your organizations have newsletters? That is a lost opportunity. Newsletters are super popular in the United States, and it's a great way. A newsletter at its core is just your best content delivered directly to audiences, right into their inbox. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to actually be an email newsletter. There's a ton of different strategies to have the newsletter, because again, no matter how you get the curated content to them, just that you do. Other newsletter approaches are a daily WhatsApp briefing. You can send a quick WhatsApp blast out to people that you're connected with on WhatsApp. Podcasts. You can do a daily podcast or a weekly podcast. A newsletter doesn't have to be every day. It can be weekly, it can be monthly. You can kind of pick your duration. Again, it's curated content that you think is best. SMS or text message blasts. Again, that's a low cost, easy approach. Newsletters help build a loyal, regular audience. And if newsletters are effective, they'll also create an audience strategy where they will click from your newsletter back to your website, where ideally they'll consume not just the stories that you picked out for them, but other stories as well. If you don't have a newsletter, consider some sort of strategy to create your best content, foster that reader-viewer loyalty. People in the United States love newsletters. There's people that subscribe to dozens of newsletters that they get daily or weekly. Pointer alone, we have 12 newsletters, and we have subscribers for all of them. Lastly, community building. Kind of the off-the-web version of audience engagement. All of these approaches are different varieties, like whether it's video, newsletters. The idea is that you're fostering community with your audience. Communities can be exclusive. Politifact has something that's called the Truth Squad. And it gives you kind of an exclusive, you're in a special club feel. And it's people who are loyal readers and oftentimes donors. It doesn't have to be, though. It can be just broad organization of your readers. People like to be part of groups. That's just kind of an innate human nature thing. And so when you tell people that they're all part of your fact-checking group, they're part of your organization, it helps make them loyal and it helps retain them. Community isn't built from donations, though it can help foster them. Other things that you can do to help build community is have actual in-person events, which I know is kind of challenging over the last 2 years. We've not wanted to be in large groups of people. But hosting events with prominent people in your community, having online events as well. Politifact and MediaWise have, do people use Reddit in India? Is that a thing? No? But they've done online Q&As, and it doesn't have to be on Reddit, it can be on any platform, really. It can be on Facebook Live, where you do online question and answers, where you're engaging with your audience in real time. Again, that's a way to foster community. You can have those dialogues in person as well. A lot of fact-checking organizations also have merchandise. So Politifact, we have stickers that we hand out to people when we go to events. We have t-shirts that we hand out. We have some that are special t-shirts for campaign events. As I mentioned, Poligrafo, they have their pepper on the tongue sticker that they hand out. Buttons, people love buttons. So merchandise is, again, a way to foster brand loyalty, and it has the added benefit that when your audience is walking around with a t-shirt with your fact-checking organization, maybe someone asks about it. And then Facebook groups and pages as well. Social media is a great way to foster community. For example, Politifact, they have the Politifact Truth Squad has their own Facebook group that they are able to talk amongst each other. Again, Facebook pages as well. People can engage with you. You can respond to them. So these are just a few different techniques to build community. But again, you kind of want that esprit de corps, which is a Latin phrase for spirit in the body. So when people feel like they're a part of something, they're more inclined to be loyal to it and they're more inclined to share it. And if there's one thing we want, it's people sharing, fact-checking truth. So that is the end of this presentation. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to take them. I think I did okay on time.
So yesterday, Rina was talking about how these shorter videos are, and also how we can make shorter videos, larger, more thank you, sir. Descriptive fact check analysis, but those shorter videos when we are doing we definitely have to kind of maintain this claim and also how do we kind of make it short? Because I think that's also very important to have these short videos.
So I think one thing, having graphics, right? Delineated graphics, it's visual, so it's short. It just, you don't have to do a large explainer. That's another one of the benefits of the ratings, I think, is it can make it quick. And you don't necessarily have to give as robust an analysis. You have a full fact-checking story. A lot of it is just, again, very down to the point. What's the claim? What's your adjudication? Give a little bit of context. Done. So just being a little less thorough, but not so unthorough that you undermine your own credibility, if that makes sense.
How important is it to kind of also have the entire analysis attached to it as a link or something? People want to,
I think it's very important to add it as a link because it allows the audience to make the decision for themselves whether or not they want to get more of that analysis. And I mean, if you get more people on your webpage, that's never a bad thing, right?
What Alana has already said. So we had a very formal training with Facebook last week. So they have specifically asked fact checkers to come up with reels on Instagram. Because please understand, Facebook has a different audience. Twitter has a different audience. When I say different audience, I'm talking about the nature of the audience. And Insta, very different audience, and they're very young. Okay, so, and besides your text, video has a very short attention span. So if you can capture the entire fact check in like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, the max 90 seconds, and you are able to picturize it as a fact check and below give your link, I think you can touch a larger audience. Like the way she has just said it, that, they have touched millions. So since all of you already belong to the TV, realm, focus on videos. Do not allow yourself to remain old school, because this whole context of fact check is very old school. So evolve with what all is happening now. So I would say focus on videos. I would say focus on Instagram.
And I think to her point, it almost like Instagram is going to be your shortest video. Facebook a little longer than that. YouTube, you can have your longer videos. People go to YouTube to watch videos. People go to Instagram to scroll.
And only graphics. Which one will perform better? Only graphic video with voiceover or a host talking about fact check?
I think generally the host will perform better, but that's a thing you have to gauge with your audience. I think the host gives it a little bit more personality. And I also think it depends on the platform as well. So I think on Instagram, you can eliminate the host if you want to, but for Facebook and YouTube, you probably should have the host. And also, I didn't add this in the presentation, but I am not a graphic designer. I studied print journalism. However, I have been able to make graphics online. Are you guys familiar with Canva?
Yes.
Yes. I use Canva to make some cheap and dirty graphics because we all have our skills and our blessings. Art is not mine.
We break for tea now. We break for tea. We come back quickly. And Sriram is here. Thank you, Alana, for your wonderful, insightful session. We spoke about lot of things like audience engagement and fact check IFC